We finally have new gameplay for God of War Ragnarok. And although it is a bit short, this new footage did show us a lot of new details, like the new weapon signature attacks in action, as well as the new shields, plus a lot more uses for Atreus and his bow as well. So if you're excited for that, then totally leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss our next God of War video, and let's go. So the first thing I want to pull your attention to is this move where Kratos charges his axe with ice. This is the Frost Awaken signature skill for the Leviathan axe, a new type of move that we will be able to perform with both the axe and the blades by pressing triangle while holding the weapon in our hands. As you can see, it buffs subsequent attacks with this Ice Storm effect. The animation and effect are very reminiscent of the Blessing of the Frost runic attack from God of War 2018, so I assume it will not return in Ragnarok with Frost Awaken taking its place. Which is a good thing, as it means we'll be able to use it a lot more often and without losing a spot for another runic attack, of course. I also think this weapon signature attack will take the place of the Permafrost skill in the skill tree, which allowed you to build up frost on enemies after multiple hits without getting hit yourself, which again is a good change, as this means you can activate your frost buildup anytime you want. And on the note of runic attacks being replaced, I spotted this attack that looks suspiciously like the River of Knives runic attack, except it seems to be a regular move Kratos is able to perform. There's also this huge explosion of frost as Kratos kicks an enemy down with the axe still stuck in them, which I'm pretty sure is new, plus it seems like you're able to transition into leaping attacks after a jump too. So they've really expanded the moveset of the Leviathan axe from the looks of it. And while we still don't know for sure what Whiplash is going to look like, I assume it's going to be something similar to infuse the Blades of Chaos with fire. We do see what I believe is a new move here, where Kratos swings the blade on its chain to then create this line of fire over the ground, very powerful, and we see him nicely transition straight into a finisher, which are still bound to R3. This one is a bit tame, but I reckon that's because the Grimm are just a regular enemy, so you want a quicker animation that doesn't get annoying, but I'm sure there's some amazing and brutal finishing moves for some of the bigger enemies in the game as well. And what is interesting here, as spotted by JSW on Reddit, is that Kratos uses the blades for this finisher, which might be a hint that we perform finishers with whatever weapon we currently have equipped instead of just going into a preset animation. We can of course also use the Blades of Chaos for traversal now, as we see Kratos using it to grapple up to a ledge, which we now see shows up in the HUD with this circle marker, kind of similar how to Horizon Forbidden West did it. However, our enemies are of course also able to make use of this increased verticality in combat spaces. We see a Grimm sticking to a wall here, at least until Kratos brutally rips him off with the blades, and another one here is taking the high ground on this pillar, after which Atreus blows it up, dropping the Grimm to the ground. And while Kratos' moveset has of course been significantly expanded, Atreus is looking a lot more useful too. Many objects in the arena, like the pillar I just mentioned, but also these barricades that block your path, are destructible with his arrows, plus we can of course expect him to grapple onto enemies as well to keep them distracted. Really cool how they show his increased skill by making sure Atreus is a more active part of combat. In 2018 he was certainly helpful, dealing extra elemental damage and distracting enemies, but now it seems like he plays a much more essential role in combat. And on the note of interacting with the environment, we see some familiar elements return in the level design of this particular combat arena. Both the green health stones and the red rage stones make their return, so keeping track of those to heal or rage up in a pinch will still be really important, and the wooden chests also return, which even though their glow has changed, I think will still contain something like Hacksilver. We also see the explosive pots from 2018 make their return. From what I remember, you wouldn't find these in combat arenas too often, but in the Game Informer preview it sounded like using these was a much more important part of combat. So I reckon we'll see more of them, or at least similar environmental hazards that allow us to blow up multiple enemies at once. We also now have some proper demonstrations of both the new shields we talked about in our previous God of War video, which we'll link to at the end of this one. Turns out that those segments next to your weapon are indeed the charges for the Stonewall shield, which collects energy from attacks you block and then uses that to create this giant blast that knocks enemies back. And as you can see here, before the blast all segments are filled in, but after it they become empty again. I also think the shield turning red here is the breaking mechanic the developers mentioned, as blocking too many consecutive attacks with a Stonewall shield will cause it to break. Not permanently of course, but you will not be able to block for a bit after tanking too many hits. And we also see the skill for the Dauntless shield in action here, which, like I speculated, looks really similar to the guard counter we already had on the Guardian shield in God of War 2018. Landing a parry at the last possible moment will make the shield glow red, which then allows you to perform this counter slam attack, which does seem to have quite a bit more force behind it than the counter on the Guardian shield. I was expecting a bit more from this, especially because a shield made for parrying is perfect for my personal personal playstyle, although the developers have said there will be even more powerful shields to look forward to. And while we are of course able to switch between our Leviathan axe and Blades of Chaos on the fly, it doesn't look like that will be the case for these new shields. You might be able to swap them out between combat encounters, but you'll really have to pick one that suits your style of play and stick with it, as on the fly swapping doesn't seem to be an option here.
And sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to chime in because during the edit I noticed that after the finishing move, the Grim enemy was added to the codex. Which for one means that the codex is of course back, which contains info of all the beasts in the game and gives us tips as well, but also that this combat encounter that we now see from Game Informer is actually the first time we encounter this new enemy faction in the game. Thought it was interesting. Okay, Dennis, now back to you.
Another interesting thing to note here is that all the enemies we encounter are level 1, likely indicating that Svartalfheim will be the first area we visit after leaving Midgard. And it's of course crazy that compared to 2018, we're starting out with both the Leviathan axe and the Blades of Chaos, plus some of the new shields and a way more capable version of Atreus in our arsenal, so we're already starting out with an amazing variety of weapons and combat options. It even looks like some of the abilities we had to unlock in God of War 2018 are available right off the bat in Ragnarok, like the heavy leap attack we see Kratos perform here. And while we didn't have to wait long to earn this ability in the previous title, we can see that the Spartan Rage will also make its return. Not only can we see the rage bar below the health bar, we also see a screenshot of Kratos activating the rage as well, which does seem a lot more fiery than I remember it. I wonder if that means something. Plus, like we mentioned, many of the runic attacks from the previous game look like they're incorporated in our regular moveset this time around. We have that River of Knives attack and Blessing of the Frost for the Leviathan axe, which now makes me think that Leviathan's wake throw in the first gameplay trailer is also part of our regular moveset. And for the blades, the Hyperion grapple is now a regular move, but that should only be the start, as Sony Santa Monica has already mentioned they're looking to greatly expand the moveset of the blades in God of War Ragnarok. And while the grapple up the ledges is certainly a part of that, I don't think we'll see an actual jump button for Kratos in the game. While Verticality will of course play a bigger role in the combat encounters, it looks to me like the leap up to or down from specific platforms is similar to how we were able to leap over obstacles in 2018, which would mean it's a contextual input, probably still bound to the circle button. So no crazy mid-air combos like in the Greek trilogy, at least I don't think so, although those platforms will definitely help spice things up in combat. And I do still think it's interesting that despite having all these powerful abilities from level 1, our gear and weapons do look pretty basic. We're at least running with the level 1 version of both the blades and the axe, but Kratos is also running around in an armor that's pretty reminiscent of what he started out with in God of War 2018. Which kinda begs the question, what happened to our Niflheim armor? Or the Valkyrie set? I wonder if the game will answer that question, or that the game will explain it with a throwaway line like Horizon Forbidden West did. Although that game did start Aloy out with the Shield Weaver armor as a reminder of our journey in Zero Dawn, so maybe we see Kratos starting out with a similar reminder, which might not show up in this footage because Santa Monica don't want to spoil it yet. Anyway, we don't have to wait long, as more gameplay will be revealed on Tuesday, which we'll of course cover here as well. So subscribe to make sure you don't miss our next God of War video, leave a like on this one if you enjoyed it, and if you want, you can watch our previous video on more details from the Game Informer cover story by clicking on the screen. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.